Dear brothers and sisters, a mystery surrounds the figure of Saint Veronica Giuliani, the Capuchin Poor Clare, whose life was marked by miraculous events and divine visions. The day of her death, July 9, 1727, seemed to mark the end of an extraordinary life, but it was in fact the beginning of a new, even more surprising chapter. Something extraordinary manifested in her body, revealed by the autopsy performed by doctors and witnessed by authoritative figures of the Church. This inexplicable event left all those present astonished, further proving that the mystical experiences Saint Veronica had during her life were not mere visions. Her death did not close the Book of Wonders, but opened new pages of mystery. This is the story of a woman who, for decades, bore the visible marks of Christ's passion on her body, and after death, offered the world even stronger evidence of her extraordinary mystical experiences. A sign that continues to speak to us today, inviting all of us to reflect on the meaning of suffering and faith. Veronica Giuliani was born on December 27, 1660, in Mercatello sul Metauro, in the province of Pesaro and Urbino. Even as a child, she stood out for her fervent devotion to Christ and her strong and determined character, signals of a spiritual calling that would manifest with great intensity throughout her life. She entered the Poor Clare Capuchin monastery in Città di Castello at a very young age, where she spent the rest of her life. From the early years of her monastic life, Veronica was distinguished by her spiritual fervor and her ability to penetrate the mysteries of faith through prayer and contemplation. At the age of just 19, she had a vision of Jesus who gave her a particular sign, a cross. This was only the beginning of a series of supernatural events that marked her life. In 1694, at the age of 34, Veronica received the stigmata of the crown of thorns. A crown of thorns appeared on her head, visible in the form of a red circle, rough and marked by violet spots, similar to what is seen in representations of Christ's Passion. This phenomenon attracted great attention, both from her fellow nuns and from doctors called to verify her health. 3 years later, on Christmas Day 1697, Veronica experienced another mystical experience of exceptional power. During a vision, the child Jesus appeared to her, holding a golden staff, resembling a lance on one side and crowned by a burning flame on the other. In a moment of intense spiritual communion, the child touched her heart with the lance, leaving an open wound, physically visible. This wound, which periodically bled, remained on her body until her death and was a tangible sign of her mystical union with Christ. At 37, Veronica received the 5 wounds of Christ's Passion. In a vision on Good Friday, she saw 5 radiant beams emerge from Christ's wounds, and in a moment of intense union with the Lord, she too felt her hands, feet, and heart pierced. From that day, she bore the visible stigmata of the crucifixion, marking her path of suffering and love for God even more deeply. Her life was filled with other visions and mystical experiences that allowed her to participate uniquely in Christ's Passion. But in addition to the visible signs of the stigmata, Veronica also bore another sign in her heart, invisible to the naked eye but just as real. In her visions, she revealed that the instruments of the Passion, such as the cross, the lance, and the crown of thorns, were imprinted on her heart, along with symbols of faith and God's love. Saint Veronica's mystical experiences were not limited to Christ's Passion. The Capuchin nun had numerous visions concerning the fate of souls, particularly of hell and purgatory. In these visions, Veronica was called to witness the afterlife reality with such depth of detail that it left all who heard her stories deeply moved. Saint Veronica described hell as a place of absolute horror and despair. In one of her visions, she found herself facing the damned souls, immersed in an ocean of fire and torment, forever separated from God's love. "These souls are like stones," Veronica wrote. "They have lost all possibility of conversion, and their greatest torment is knowing that they can no longer be loved by God or love Him. According to Veronica, the deepest suffering was not just the fire or physical punishment, but the total absence of God and the eternal awareness of one's guilt. Veronica's visions of hell were not meant to instill fear, but to warn the faithful about the gravity of sin and the need to live a life oriented toward God. With great humility, she prayed ceaselessly for the salvation of souls, offering her suffering as penance for the conversion of sinners. Through these visions, Saint Veronica experienced not only the pain of those separated from God, but also the profound divine love that desires the salvation of every soul. If hell was a place of eternal separation from God, Veronica described purgatory as a manifestation of God's merciful love, a place where souls could be purified to achieve the holiness necessary for the beatific vision. In her visions of purgatory, the saint saw souls wrapped in a brilliant but painful light, purifying every trace of imperfection. Purgatory is an immense grace, she said, because the souls there know that after purification, they will see the face of God. Veronica spent hours in prayer for the souls in purgatory, offering herself as a victim to alleviate their suffering. She prayed continuously that their time of purification might be shortened, so they could soon reach eternal bliss. Her visions of purgatory remind us that God's mercy knows no bounds, and that even in pain, there is hope and redemption. Throughout her life, Veronica was subjected to continuous examinations and tests, both by her fellow nuns and by ecclesiastical authorities, to verify the authenticity of her signs and mystical experiences. She endured harsh trials, including long periods of isolation and deprivation of Holy Communion. However, Veronica always maintained her humility and spirit of obedience, accepting every suffering as participation in Christ's passion. When she died, the Bishop of Città di Castello ordered an autopsy on her body to verify the presence of the signs that had characterized her spiritual life. It was during this examination that the most extraordinary discoveries were made. The autopsy, performed by Professor Francesco Gentili and Dr. Gianfrancesco Bordigia in the presence of several ecclesiastical figures, revealed details that shocked those present. Although the visible stigmata on her extremities had left no scars, the pericardium, the sac surrounding the heart, was thickened and showed a two-lipped wound, corresponding to the one Veronica bore on her chest, a sign of her union with Christ's passion. But what was most incredibly confirmed was what Veronica herself had always declared. Within her heart, plastic formations were found representing spiritual and mystical symbols. Inside the right atrium of her heart, the doctors found a cross, a crown of thorns, 2 flames, 7 swords arranged like a fan, and numerous other signs that matched exactly what Veronica had described in her visions. The doctors, though men of science, could not explain these phenomena with the usual laws of medicine. It was a divine sign, a seal placed by God Himself on the heart of His faithful servant. The life and death of Saint Veronica Giuliani represent a powerful testimony for all believers. In a world increasingly detached from the spiritual dimension, her story reminds us that the mystery of God often manifests in the most humble and suffering ways. The marks found on her body after death not only confirm her mystical experiences, but also invite us to reflect on the value of suffering lived in union with Christ. Today, her figure continues to inspire thousands of believers, not only for her miracles and visions, but also for her example of humility, obedience, and unconditional love for God. Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on new videos and become part of this faith and prayer community. May God bless us all.